Shalom, everyone, and welcome back to Insights in the Parsha of the Week, Parshat VaEra, based on the teachings of Rabbi Nachman. Before we go into the insight on the Parsha, we'd like to just give an overview of the concept of Egypt, going into Egypt and coming out of Egypt, based on introductory teachings from Rabbi Nachman's Likutei Moran, lesson 24. Basically, the Jews going into Egypt is for the purpose of extracting holiness stuck there, trapped there, due to previous damage done from even before the creation, the concept of the shadowing of the vessels, and also plus what the Arizal teaches that stuck in Egypt. Why specifically Egypt? Because Egypt at the time was the epitome, the biggest representation of sorcery and magic in the world. Sorcery and magic being connected to the domain of evil, of course. So there being the biggest seat of holiness stuck there and trapped there, which is basically the nourishment of all sorcery and witchcraft, etc. So that being the case, the Jews were sent into exile in Egypt, number one, to be purged. But the idea of being purged is in order to extract all holiness stuck there. Like the Arizal said, sparks of holiness trapped from Adam Arishon's sin of wasted seed for the first 130 years until the birth of Shet, the third son of Adam Arishon. And the Jews' mission was to extract all holiness stuck there, and that was through the bondage, being purged in the kivshan, if you want to call it, the furnace of Egypt, and coming out victorious, successful, extracting all the holiness that was stuck there and bringing out, leaving nothing left in Egypt. Like Rashi says, kimtsula, like a water body without any fishes. Nothing left there at all. Okay? So now, Rabbi Nachman teaches in lesson 24 that the way to extract is through simcha. Simcha and the ktoret, the incense, have a similar power. Both have the power of extraction. Rav Nosson explains the ktoret, it activates simcha, and it's really simcha that can extract. The verse reads, by the way, in Proverbs, ktoret yesamach lev. Ktoret brings joy to the heart, because the Zohar explains ktoret has the ability to go deep into the evil domain, extract holiness, smash the evil, extract what's stuck there, and bring it back up. That's why there were 11 fragrances in the Ktoret. 11 correspond to the 10 Sfirot, and number 11 is seen as the connector. If now we see the domain of evil also having 10 negative Sfirot, so number 11 is the conduit that the evil gain nourishment from the holiness. So the Ktoret has to have 11, 10 to combat the 10 levels of impurity, and the 11 is the bridge to go into them. So it's like chains, the Zohar says, chains connected, linked together, and all 11 go all the way down to minus 10, the lowest one, through 11 to the first one before the 10, because they number 11 in total, and then pulling out any holiness stuck there. That's why there's 11 fragrances. And Rabbi Nachman teaches simcha is what does the job. Since Ktoret brings such joy to Hashem, the verse reads, Ktoret brings joy to the heart. Whose heart? The heart of Hashem. The Shekhinah, the divine presence, brings joy because of what it does. That these fragrances have the power, this combination of these 11 fragrances, have the power to go into the domain of evil, spiritually, and extract and bring out. That's why the Ktoret was so important in the time of the Holy Temple. And until today, the recitation we do every day of the Ktoret does the exact same thing. So that's the idea of Ktoret, and simcha that is connected to the idea of Ktoret. Rabbi Nachman teaches, Rabbi Nosson explains that Ktoret is very beneficial to cheering up a person. When a person's feeling down, the Ktoret is a way, when saying Ktoret with concentration, you can bring a person to simcha. And when a person has simcha, that's his way to extract. Because like the verse reads about simcha in Isaiah, I think it's chapter 55, Ki besimcha tetzeu, or chapter 45, one of the two. Ki besimcha tetzeu. With joy, you will come out. Come out of what? Whatever you're stuck. Wherever holiness is stuck, simcha can extract it. If you feel personally stuck, Simcha is the way out. When you feel you're going through a personal Egypt, your way out is simcha. Okay? With that said, we can understand why Moshe was commanded by Hashem to do the 10 plagues. But before that, the initial initiation of Moshe before Paro was number 11, which was the first before the 10, which is Hashem commanded Moshe in front of Paro to give his staff to Aharon. Aharon threw his staff on the ground and it turned to a snake. This is in a way similar to what happened last week's Parsha, where Hashem told Moshe Rabbeinu, Mazeh bi'adecha, what's in your hand? He said, Mateh, hashlicheu arza, throw the staff on the ground, it turned to a snake. That was in front of Moshe Rabbeinu. Moshe Rabbeinu now has to have this repeated in front of Pharaoh. But now Aharon is the one doing it. The commentaries say because technically Moshe Rabbeinu did speak a type of slander against the Jewish people, saying they won't believe him if he tells the Jewish people that he was sent to redeem them from Hashem. So Hashem said you spoke slander against the Jewish people. So the commentaries say that's why Aharon in this week's parsha is the one doing the work. But we said last week that the Midrash says, and the Zohar, that this staff was a special staff. It had engraved on it the first letters, the acronym of the 10 plagues. Dam, Tzvardea, Kinim, Datzach, Adash, Be'achav. What we say on the night of the Haggadah, of Pesach, right? So you had the 10 plagues inscribed on the staff, as if to say that these 10 plagues, which are subduing the evil and releasing the holiness, is due to the idea of the staff. So in a sense, the Kabbalah teaches that this staff with the 10 plagues written on them are really connected to the 10 sfirot in the initiation of the creation of the world, the 10 utterances in the initiation of the creation of the world, and like Rav Nosson explains, the 10 melodies, which are the real root of the 10 sfirot, the 10 utterances. They're all rooted in the 10 types of melody. Melody is so powerful. Okay? So the 10 hinted on the staff is as if to say song, simcha, which is the root of all creation. Why do we say that? Because Hashem's initiative in creating the world was out of joy, out of goodness. Hashem wanted there to be a recipient of his goodness, meaning joy. Hashem was joyous to make the creation, that there should be someone to receive of his goodness. So there's a simcha involved in Hashem himself. Kivyachol, if we can now characterize based on our limited perception, we coin it, we categorize it that Hashem had a joy in creating the world. Obviously Hashem himself and his whoever he is way beyond our capacity. But from our perspective, we can understand it that Hashem was joyous, was besimcha to create the world. That's why he wanted mankind to exist. There should be a recipient to receive his goodness, and that produces joy. That is a source of joy and produces joy. Okay? So Moshe Rabbeinu was commanded to throw the staff, and it turned to a snake. The snake, like we said in last week's class, the primordial snake, the nachash, is the biggest representation of someone who's not happy with their portion. Because the snake, the whole thing of the snake, that he was jealous. What are you jealous about? He wanted Chava. What do you want Chava? Hashem created you with your species. Be happy with your portion. No, I'm jealous. Why are you jealous? Because you're not happy. The snake represents atzvut, sadness. Okay? Now, Paro, he illustrated himself also to be a snake. Like we read in the Haftarah, he says he's Nachash, right? Tanin Gadol, the prophet says about Paro, you call yourself the big snake or crocodile. Crocodile and snakes is in a way a similar species. Li, right? Li Tanin, and he said you're a Tanin. Vili Yaori, Vili Asitini. I made the Yaor. Because again, Paro, he said that he was the god of the Nile River. Because when Yaakov blessed Pharaoh, that whenever we would come to the water of the Nile River, the water would rise. So that's when the famine stopped. When Yaakov came after 2 years of famine, he gave that bracha to Pharaoh. Pharaoh would go to the Nile River, it would rise, the water would come, and it would water all the trenches connected to the Nile River, and thus watering all the vegetation, all the produce. No more drought. Great. Okay? That was what was needed to water the land. So he took a claim eventually that I am the master of the Nile. Because look, I'm the one who's able to, when I come to the Nile River, it comes up and it waters everything. There's irrigation due to me. So he claimed he was a god, but he called himself a Nachash, the snake. Okay? Primordial snake. What is the idea? Just like this, in our concept, in our context, The snake is someone who's not happy with his portion. That was the whole cause for the enslavement, the bondage. That Pharaoh was worried that the Jews would take over the land. What are you worried about? They're not going to take over the land. No, they're going to take over. He was jealous that they were becoming more multiple, and he was worried that they would take over. But the worry of taking over, it comes from someone who's unhappy with his portion. If you're happy, you're not worried they're going to take. What are they taking over? The Jewish people are there just sojourning. They said themselves, we're here in exile, waiting to go back. We're here until the famine stops. We're stuck here until the decree comes of the 400 years that Hashem decreed we should be foreigners in someone else's land. So they had to wait for 400 years to finish from the time of Isaac's birth until the leaving of Egypt, which is a total of 400 years. Okay? So he, knowing that, because they told him originally that Yosef and his brothers and Yaakov told Paro that we're here just as sojourners, he felt jealousy. Look at them, they're successful, they're doing well, they're being fruitful and everything. So he had a type of jealousy which is rooted in sadness. So going back, Moshe Rabbeinu was commanded by Hashem, throw your staff, it'll turn into a snake. So when Pharaoh saw that, he laughed. He said, what are you doing? We all do this. The Midrash Tanchuma says that Pharaoh called even 4 or 5-year-old Egyptian children who were also master sorcerers already at that age, because everybody there was into sorcery. He brought them also to throw their staffs, and they all turned into snakes. And also the Midrash says that Pharaoh told his wife, come in, also you, my wife, the queen. She threw her staff, and they turned to a snake, and they all called in the actual sorcerers come. So the Midrash says there were piles of staffs that turned into snakes. Okay, so what happened was, there's an opinion in the Midrash, like based on the Zohar, that the staffs once they all turned back, then the staffs, then the staff of Aharon, which had inscribed it at the 10 plagues, swallowed up all the staffs of the Egyptians. There were tons. They said there was like 10 mounds of staffs over there. Chomarim, mamash piles of staffs, and the staff of Moshe and Aharon swallowed up all of them, and it remained skinny, like as if to say, you guys are nothing. Your evil that you're trying to present is just a trickery of the mind. It's not real. It's all fake. Because, this we didn't mention, the whole idea of Egypt being sorcerers and into magic and witchcraft is we're able to alternate and change the truth to falsehood. That's what witchcraft and sorcery is that you're altering what's a reality and making it into a fake, false reality, a trick of the mind, imagination, playing games with the imagination. Like for example, when the command of Dam, the first one came along, so he commanded his mechashifim to make also blood from some other material to make it also into blood, to copy. But it was only temporarily. They couldn't do it for good. Frogs also, right? So you see that they were all trying to say you're doing witchcraft in our land. We're also experts in witchcraft. The idea of Egypt being into sorcery witchcraft is the idea of the chambers of exchanges. Because we didn't mention that the idea of Egypt being the place where holiness is stuck is because since they were master sorcerers and witchcraft and evil like that, so they were the epitome of the chamber of exchanges also, where holiness is trapped there, which was the actual case in Egypt. And it's the mission of us Jewish people being in exile in Egypt to extract it. So Moshe Rabbeinu initiated with the 10 plagues, but first he had to do this thing of having his staff turn into a snake, and then once they were resorted back to staffs, then his staff swallowed all of them up, to show that the 10 plagues etched on the staff of Moshe and Aharon, which are rooted in the 10 types of melody, which is the concept of joy, is what swallows up the snakes, which are representing sadness. Their snakes that they did was idea of snakes representing the primordial snake who's not happy. That's why he's a snake. He has no arms and legs that were cut off as a punishment for coveting, wanting Chava for himself and for coveting mankind. So he was punished that he lost his arms and his legs. His whole essence as a snake shows that he's someone who's lacking. He's lacking and representing true sadness. Okay? So Moshe Rabbeinu had to initiate before the 10 plagues one more sign, an ot, which wasn't a plague, it was just a sign. So this sign, plus the 10 plagues affected by Moshe and Aharon, correspond to the 11 fragrances of the Ktoret. Because, like we said earlier, the Ktoret has the power to go into evil, smash evil, extract the holiness. So it's necessary for Moshe Rabbeinu to do that, to activate that, to do 10 plagues, plus the initiative sign of turning the staff into a snake, which is like the connector entering the domain of evil. That was Moshe Rabbeinu's entrance point into the domain of Egypt. The staffs turning into snakes and then swallowing them up, showing submission from the root, that we're going to submit, we're going to break and have the sadness of the snake representation of Egypt submitted to the joy of the staff of Moshe and Aharon, which had in them the 10 Morse code indicators of the 10 types of melody hinted to in the acronym of the 10 types of plagues. That will initiate the beginning of the removal of the holy sparks stuck in Egypt. So this we see in the Parsha, and B'ezras Hashem, as the Parshas go on, we will see more development of this idea. Shabbat Shalom, and the point being of all this, how a Jew has to remember that simcha is his key out. Things are heavy, things are difficult, it's understood. There are very difficult times in life, there are highs and lows, but when a person has a low, not to give up. Even if he falls as low as he falls and he keeps on falling, the thing is to get back up, B'ezrat Hashem, and to start again, and not to give up, B'ezrat Hashem, and to have a positivity of joy. And when you do that, B'ezrat Hashem, you can extract all the evil trapped there, whether due to what you've done presently, and all the more so what's been trapped beforehand, from previous reincarnations, all the way up to Adam's sin, and all the way up to the shadowing of the vessels from the beginning of the creation. Shabbat Shalom, Umvrach.